My throat's dry. Since you're the newbie, go buy me some tea.
She demanded. I had run into my ex-girlfriend, of all people, when I returned to the headquarters after 10 years. She had apparently joined the company mid-career and seemed unaware that I also worked here. Back in our student days, I was clueless about dealing with women and basically did whatever she asked. But I'm a 30-year-old man now, not some naive kid. I was shocked at her behavior.
You exist to be used, you know. Hey, I might even consider dating you again. You can carry my things, do my errands. It would be super convenient. Hurry up and go buy that tea.
She gave me a hard shove on the shoulder. People around us were stealing glances. I guess I have no choice, I grumbled. Just as I was about to run her errand, a beautiful secretary who happened to pass by delivered a shocking blow to my ex, leaving her speechless and pale as a sheet. Well, back in my student days, I was indeed used by her without realizing it. My name is Mick Hale, and I'm 30 years old. The woman trying to use me as a gopher is Margarita, the girl I had asked out back in high school. She was my junior in the brass band club and looked exactly my type. Long lashes and loosely curled hair. Her eyes, breathtakingly beautiful, seemed to draw you in. I confessed my feelings to her without expecting much, and to my surprise, she agreed to date me. As she was my first girlfriend, I was over the moon back then. I used all of the pocket money I received from my parents on her. I prioritized her over anything I wanted, diverting funds to our dates and gifts for her. She never contributed a dime to our dates, and so I tried to save money in my everyday life. If we went on a date without meals or anything, she would clearly be in a bad mood. I hadn't noticed it before we started dating, but she was a bit selfish. Even so, back then, I cherished her. I listened to everything she said. I remember struggling, thinking that being in a relationship with a woman was this stuff. Despite all the hardships, she ended up breaking up with me. I'll never forget it. It was the day of our graduation ceremony. The ceremony had ended, as well as our last homeroom, and I was supposed to meet her at the school gate. I thought we would be going home together, talking about how we wouldn't be together at school anymore. When I arrived at the school gate, the first thing she said to me was a breakup.
Let's break up,
she said. It was so sudden that I couldn't fully comprehend the situation. It even sounded like a joke to me. I didn't understand why. I had cherished her so much. Stunned, I listened to what she had to say.
I found someone smarter and wealthier.
As she said this, she touched the necklace she was wearing. It wasn't something I had given her. It was a brand name necklace, clearly out of place on her. You mean? She didn't answer my question.
You were really convenient, always doing whatever I said. But I'm good now. See you,
she said, and ran back towards the school building. I stood there, watching her retreating figure, unable to grasp the reality of the situation for a while. The worst memory of my graduation day became my fuel in university. If I were smarter and richer, she wouldn't have broken up with me. In hindsight, that was a shallow thought, but I was young back then. With this mindset, I worked hard in my studies and achieved great results. I also actively participated in seminars and club activities to gain an advantage in job hunting. Thanks to all this, I was able to get a job at a top-tier company. If she hadn't broken up with me, I would probably have lived a casual university life. If that had been the case, I wouldn't be who I am today. In that sense, I am thankful to her for breaking up with me. The habit of working hard at university was greatly beneficial after I started working. My attitude of getting involved in various areas of work, regardless of department, was highly evaluated, and I was given the opportunity to participate in a major project to start a subsidiary. Being entrusted with such a responsible job at a young age was truly gratifying. I spent about 4 years getting the company off the ground and was involved in its operations. There were many setbacks, and the work was piled high, but I never gave up and worked hard. Recognizing my achievements, the company also involved me in the startup of the next subsidiary, and then the next. I was the only one in the company who had been involved in starting up 3 subsidiaries. Then, I was called back to the headquarters after a long time. My return to the headquarters was the first time in a full decade. The atmosphere of the headquarters had significantly changed after 10 years. The previously austere and cold entrance had become stylish, filled with ornamental plants, high design tables, and a reception space with indirect lighting on the wall and brightly colored sofas in one corner. There was also a stylish air purifier, which seemed too small for the large space of the entrance. The overall feeling was much softer than when I worked at the headquarters. "It's become quite grand," I murmured. When I conveyed my business at the reception, I was told it would take a while. When I mentioned that I would like to look around the building, they'll lend me a guest security card. I decided to take a stroll inside the building until it was time. They even had a refreshment room. I had heard rumors that the welfare benefits had greatly improved, and I felt the company had changed into a comfortable place that fully considered the mental well-being of its employees. I wish we had facilities like this when I was at the headquarters. I used the security card I received at the reception to enter the refreshment room. There were spacious sofas and a counter facing the window. There were vending machines and a free coffee machine. It used to be necessary to step outside the company to buy a drink. Things have certainly become more convenient. The vending machine lineup was plentiful, including light meals. There was also a magazine corner. I imagine taking a lunch break in a place like this. It would indeed feel refreshing. I remembered eating convenience store bread at my desk and felt a pang of regret. I decided to head back to the entrance and started walking the way I came when I saw some employees acting affectionately in the middle of the hallway. Both of them seemed younger than me. I wondered how they could afford to do so at such a busy time. During my time, there was no spare time for such things during work hours. I wouldn't mind a bit of casual conversation, but their display was excessive to the point of being inappropriate. No matter how good their relationship was, I wish they would distinguish between their private lives and the workplace. Ignoring this could have a bad effect on the company's atmosphere. Thinking so, I decided to lightly caution them and approach the two. As I approached, they seemed to notice me and turned to look at me. I didn't recognize the man, but the woman looked familiar. I couldn't remember at first, but when she opened her mouth, it came back to me.
Mikhail.
Yes, it was Margarita, my girlfriend from high school. Margarita. The memory of the terrible graduation ceremony came back to me. Even though I used to love and date her, strangely enough, there were no romantic feelings left in me. Why are you here of all places?
Why? I've been with this company for 2 years now.
She responded, her hair dyed brown and her makeup heavier than before. There was a glittery sparkle near the corners of her eyes. Regardless of the lack of company regulations, I had never seen someone come to work with such an appearance. As bewildered as I was, she was standing right in front of me, and there was no other option but to accept the reality. She then introduced me to the man standing next to her.
Oh, this guy was my errand boy back in high school. He did everything I asked, but he didn't have much money, so the dates were boring.
Ah, I see. He does give off that vibe. You must have been patient to date him.
He laughed at me with disdain.
Exactly. He begged so much, I only agreed to date him a little bit. But then he started acting like my boyfriend. He was only good as an errand boy.
Well, Margarita, you didn't have to say things like that.
Excuse me, could you not call me Margarita, even if we're old acquaintances? I'd like you to call me Miss Margarita properly.
After flipping her hair lightly with her fingers, she dramatically threw her arms around his.
This is my current boyfriend, Mr. Alexander. Unlike you, he's an elite, and he's going to be the next president, right?
She said, grinning at him.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm one of the chosen ones.
He smirked back at her, locking eyes. I was disgusted at the spectacle, thinking that they should save such behavior for outside of the office. But she started talking to him again, clearly trying to pull him back into their private world.
That mixer was a destined encounter, wasn't it? And you've even let me join this top-class company to ensure we can stay together forever. I'm so lucky.
I let out an unintentional, hefty sigh. Whether it irked her or not, she suddenly turned to me with a serious look on her face.
Breaking up with you was the best decision I've ever made. By the way, why are you even here? Outsiders should wait at the entrance.
No, actually, I'm an employee here too.
Are you kidding? There's no way someone like you could get into a prestigious company like this. You can drop the pretense. We know. Your raggedy suit screams third-rate company employee. Anyway, since you're the newcomer here, go fetch something from the refreshment room over there for me and him. You do have that much money, right?
Excuse me?
You're only good for being used, remember? Hey, now, off you go.
She shrieked in a hysteric tone. Before I knew it, people around us were sneaking glances our way. Making a scene wouldn't do anyone any good. Fine, tooties it is.
That's it. Be quick about it. Oh, I might consider dating you again. You'd be handy to carry my things and run errands. So convenient.
With her mocking tone towards the future president and her sneer at me, I headed off to the refreshment room. Let's see, tooties. I pulled out some coins from my wallet. Looking at the vending machine, there were so many types of tea. Well, anyone will do. As I was picking up the 2 cans that had clattered out, someone unexpectedly spoke to me.
Mr. McHale, I was looking for you.
I turned around to find the secretary. She had short black hair and a neat face. Even with her modest makeup, she was radiant. A competent secretary if there ever was one. She seemed to remember me, despite us having met only once. Glancing at my wristwatch, I realized quite some time had passed. I'll hand over these teas first, I explained, and headed back to the pair. They were still canoodling in the same spot as before. Upon seeing me return with the secretary, she laughed.
Oh my, were you lost? Had to ask someone for directions.
The secretary looked at her in surprise and then asked me,
Are these 2 the ones you were getting before?
Yeah, they said they were thirsty, I responded. She nodded in satisfaction.
Exactly. I asked him to run an errand for me and my future CEO boyfriend, but I didn't think he'd get lost. We were just discussing whether we should go somewhere else since you were taking so long, right, Mr. Alexander?
The secretary tilted her head in confusion.
The future CEO. The future CEO for him? Yes, that's right. Oh, you should know this as the secretary. The future CEO is Mr. Alexander, the son of the CEO, which makes me the future first lady.
The secretary quietly crossed her arms, looking straight at her and stated,
The future CEO is Mr. McHale.
I was thinking the same thing, but it seemed like they were clueless.
What do you mean? He's the future CEO. He's not the son of the CEO. No, as the CEO's secretary, I was informed that Mr. McHale is the future CEO.
The secretary and she locked eyes, silently but fiercely. I hastily intervened to mediate. Let's calm down. There must be some misunderstanding. Let me explain. I explained to both of them in detail. The project for launching the subsidiary I was in charge of was initially supposed to be managed by Alexander, the CEO's son. It was a necessary experience for anyone aiming to become the CEO of this company. However, this unvehemently refused.
I can't handle the launch of regional subsidiary. I have my own stuff I want to do here. Leave it to the underlings.
The CEO attempted to convince his son, but to no avail. Trusting in his son's words that he had something he wanted to do, he observed him, only to see him hardly working and out partying every night. He was frequently absent from work due to hangovers. They initially turned a blind eye due to his youth, but when he also refused to participate in the second launch, I, who was supposed to return to the headquarters around that time, was personally asked by the CEO.
My son refuses to step up, so I'm asking you. I know you'd like to return to the head office, and you have the experience. Take the lead and manage the launch of our subsidiary.
I found myself again tasked with the challenging duty of launching another troublesome subsidiary. When it was finally getting on track, the president had a consultation with me.
When this launch ends, there will be another one. If my son does not participate in it, just be prepared.
Prepared for what?
In the event my son does not show the capacity of a future president, I might consider you.
I was truly taken aback. Firstly, the president is still quite young, but upon hearing the president's explanation, I understood. It's not that I'd immediately become the president after the launch. I would return to the head office, refine my skills, and build my capabilities. Only then would it be considered. Participating in the subsidiary's launch was the president's minimum condition. And so I engaged in the third launch. As expected, the son did not participate. Worse, he even forced his girlfriend to join the company. Since then, Alexander's reputation was at its worst, and everyone in the company was anxious about the future. The president finally gave up and lost his patience with his son. Once the third launch was completely over, I received an official appointment to serve at the head office as the next president. Despite my thorough explanation, Alexander, who was standing right before me, seemed unconvinced, glaring at me as though I was the villain.
Being a president after merely launching a subsidiary, who would accept that? I am the legitimate heir carrying the president's bloodline. It's not like some outsider can feel all high and mighty after a bit of hard work.
A bit of hard work? After going through such hardships 3 times. And he downplays it like that when he has not even done anything himself. I was so infuriated, I had to question him. So, what have you done for the company, or for succeeding your father as the president?
Doesn't matter. As the president's son, I am the next president.
As Alexander screamed, a dumbfounded secretary whispered to me,
Let's leave, Mr. Mikhail.
I agreed. I couldn't be part of such a ridiculous farce any longer. I have things to do. As I tried to leave, Alexander grabbed my arm.
Hold on. We're not done. You being the president is absurd.
Anything more to discuss, take it up with your father. We must go now. We've even finished our tea errand.
What did you say?
The son raised his fist. You better not. I motioned towards the corridor with my chin. The shouting had attracted a crowd. Among them were people pointing their phones in our direction. Whether he didn't have the courage to punch me in such a situation or he was just too frustrated, the son reluctantly lowered his raised fist, leaving Alexander standing there. I pushed through the crowd. Just then, Margarita ran towards me and called me.
Wait, Mikhail.
Turning around, she closed the distance between us, maintaining her momentum.
Mikhail, you're so cool. Hey, can we get back together? It's fate, right? We're meeting here like this. Destiny must be real.
She's talking about getting back together after all these years. I gently pushed her away, bemused by her puppy dog eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't like you at first, but I want to be with someone with a beautiful heart, not just a pretty face. With that, I turned on my heel and headed towards the president's office. Those two had caused quite a delay. Sometime later, the president's son voluntarily resigned. It had come to light that he was embezzling the company's money and frittering his time away. The contents warranted disciplinary dismissal or even a lawsuit, but it seemed like the father's final act of leniency. Although he had protested to his father, he was intimidated by the president's question, "Do you want to become a criminal?" and reportedly submitted his resignation letter in tears. As for Margarita, she followed him and quit the company too. It was quite predictable. She was a nepotism hire who couldn't do her job properly and was universally disliked by everyone. She left the company unceremoniously without a single word of farewell. Rumor has it that Margarita was also dumped by the president's son and is now living alone in a cheap apartment. It seems that the bill for not working hard on her own had finally come due. Several years later, while I was still refining my skills as the next president, I had a shocking encounter. When I visited the subsidiary after a long time, I was suddenly accosted in the hallway. "Mikhail," someone called. I turned around to find it was the president's son, Alexander. I felt a bit awkward, but he seemed to be wary of onlookers, leading me into an empty conference room.
I'm relieved. No one saw us.
I wondered if he was up to no good, but then he lowered his head.
I'm sorry for what happened back then.
This was completely unexpected. It seems he had hidden his identity as the president's son and got a job at the subsidiary. When he saw me, he panicked thinking I might reveal his true identity. Hence, he brought me into the conference room. Initially, he felt the past events were unjust, but after switching jobs to another company, he came to realize his own powerlessness. He started feeling ashamed for not making any efforts. His decision to join the subsidiary must have come from some kind of resolution. Life is unpredictable. Still, I have to keep striving to live a life my past self would have wanted. Being diligent is crucial to improve the future. When you're confused, fallen, or stumbled, and when you lose sight of your future, how you bounce back is what matters. It is the past self who helps you bounce back. That's why I am grateful for everything that's happening now. I believe the experiences of my past self become the energy for my future self.